Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. My name's Heather, and who are you, fella?
This takes me way back to when we first did the pod.
I know.
Because for the first while, it was just you and me
Just
talking.
you and me, bud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's me, Jamey. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey there. We lost everyone else. Joe's out sick.
It's down for the count.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
I heard Lee also.
Yeah, she went down.
She went down
too.
yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Yep.
here's hoping.
Yeah. And Ad's out today because she is picking up her dad. He's coming for a visit
Yep.
from the homeland,
Yep.
Minnesota, for those of you who don't know what I mean by that. And everyone else is like busy today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah.
Back to the OG situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
How
good.
was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Friday, Bonnie and I spent a little time together, and it was lovely. And then Saturday, we had friends over, and that was fun. We had a good time. Bonnie made enough taco stuff to last Saturday when we had friends. Sunday for lunch with our kids.
Yes.
And then probably
Until
every
next
day
week.
until Sunday again. So,
All right.
yeah, I will probably have a Spanish accent by the end of the week. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
That's awesome. I went down to see my sister on Friday
Oh,
because
nice.
it was her birthday this last week, and she lives in Greenville with her family.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see my nephews that are 2 and just like about 7 months. They are so cute and
Yeah.
fun.
So much fun. We got to hang out with Esther on Sunday.
Oh, my gosh.
And Trenton.
Yes.
Trenton was great too. But
They're just at such fun ages.
such a fun time. Yeah.
And the 2-year-old is talking like so much, and he's like goofy. And then the baby, he is the happiest baby. He's like Trenton, like just the happiest baby. He smiles and laughs at everything.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, really sweet and just good. Some good sister time. So
Nice.
that was really good.
Very good.
And then we were among the friends that you had over on Saturday night, and that was really fun.
It was fun.
We got to play a fun game and enjoy the taco spread that Bonnie made. So that was good.
It was very fun.
Yeah, good weekend. Anything stand out to you in our Bible reading challenge this week?
Yeah, so I had it was from 1 Corinthians 8, and it's one of those passages that you normally just kind of read through, and I mean it's not all that. It's talking about eating food offered to idols. You know, there's a few chapters in the New Testament that talk about that kind of stuff. But there was something in it that, I don't know, just kind of made me think about it slightly differently. And then, like, I don't have an answer, but made me kind of wonder, like, is there some kind of modern day cultural equivalent? So he's talking about how, you can eat food offered to idols and it's not a big deal because the idols aren't real gods, all that kind of stuff. And then in verse 7, he says, however, not all believers know this. Some are accustomed to thinking of idols as real. So they eat food that's been offered to idols. They think of it as the worship of real gods, and their weak consciences are violated. And it's true that we can't win God's approval by what we eat. We don't lose anything if we don't eat it. We don't gain anything if we do. But you have to be careful that your freedom doesn't cause others with a weaker conscience to stumble. And then he says, this was the part that kind of just stood out to me. He says, like, if others see you with your superior knowledge eating, in quotes, superior knowledge eating in the temple of an idol, won't they be encouraged to violate their conscience by eating food that has been offered to an idol? And it was that part that just kind of stood out to me as I hadn't really noticed that before. He's not just talking about like picking up meat at the grocery store in the idol section of the grocery store that's been discounted meats because they've been offered somewhere. This is a believer going into a temple to eat. And like it seems a little bit more immersive than just like, oh, I'm just eating food. No, they're actually going into these places of worship of other idols and sitting down and having a meal. And by external appearances, it appears as if they are engaged in worship of these idols because of where they happen to be. And Paul is, he's warning them, like, don't do that in a way that's going to violate the conscience of someone else. But he's also saying it's not a big deal if you do that.
Yeah.
And so, like, this idea of, like, not just, I don't know, like, what is the cultural equivalent of, because it's not like oftentimes we'll talk about alcohol or, those gray area issues. But, like, I don't know, it just seems a little more intense to me than that. Like, they're actually going into places of worship and eating, and Paul's participating, and some would take that as an act of worship, and Paul is saying it's an okay thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of wild. So I don't know. I don't know what the equivalent of that would be, but it did strike me as, like, I used to always think of it as like food that's being offered to idols that's for sale in the marketplace, and they would pick it up, and that could violate someone's conscience. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying they're actually going into these temples and eating, and others would see it as them participating in it. So, like, what are those things that we could engage our culture in that might be offensive to some, but are not really a violation of are called to be set apart? I don't know what the answer to that is, but it just struck me as interesting.
You think I don't know if that's how I read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's like, you must be careful. Like, I guess he is saying that it's okay to do that, but he is
saying it's
warning.
Okay. He is warning, be careful that you don't violate the conscience of someone else.
Yeah,
But right before that, he's saying they are your freedoms.
They are your freedoms.
Just be careful not to abuse them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So eating in the temple of an idol. That's what he says in verse 10. I mean, it's just kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
I guess, in our culture, what would that be?
I don't know.
Lee, what you got? He wanted to be a part of this podcast today.
Got anything, Lee?
I got nothing.
He says he's got nothing.
All right. Listeners, if you got something, email us.
Weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Made for Mondays at believerschurch.org. Speaking of that, we got
We do.
What the what?
Yeah.
Question.
We do.
And upon receiving this question, I have responded to this person to tell her that I'm going to kind of paraphrase.
Yes. She asked me about it yesterday.
Yeah. So she sent us in a question based on a couple of passages that she's been reading and pondering. The passages that she's read are Romans 3:27 through 31, James 2:14 through 26, and John 10:25 through 30. So if anyone is interested in reading those.
So the Romans 3 is the anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved one, right?
Yes.
The James, is it the faith and works one?
Yes.
Okay. And then what was the last one?
And John 10:25 through 30, that is...
no one can take those who belong to God out of his hand. Right.
Right.
Yep.
Basically, salvation is secured.
Yep.
So those are the passages. So she breaks this down. So I guess my question is this. If you ask for salvation and mean it, and you start to live out your faith, but then revert back to your old ways, can your salvation be revoked? I really just want to understand how all of these verses work together. I always believed that once you were saved, nothing could undo that unless you specifically denounced God. Can you truly be saved if you stray away? I know that salvation really isn't a one and done kind of thing, like simply just asking God to save you so you can have an instant ticket to heaven, basically a get out of jail free card so you can do whatever you want. It does require true repentance and a relationship with Jesus. It requires truly wanting to pursue God with all of your heart. So that's Sarah's question. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have some things you can offer some clarity? Because I think this is something that these 3 passages, if taken kind of like out of context or and then just pitted against each other, do feel a little conflicting.
Yeah, well, it gets worse because there's other passages that make it even more conflicting.
Yes.
And so, so this is, I mean, it's a pretty common question.
Yep.
We've probably addressed versions of it on here in the past. But the gist of it, I think, would be, so a couple things. One is the verse in Romans, whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. The thief on the cross next to Jesus calls out to him and is saved. And there's no time for fruit. There's no time for, a life that's marked by change. There's no time for any of that. There's just a posture of his heart that changes, and Jesus recognizes it and tells him that it was a saving faith, that he would be in eternity with him that day. So that's one thing. Like, a track record isn't necessary. So that's kind of one thing. And then there's other people. Like, what about other people who have, who are in like health situations where they can't do many things? Can't they still have a saving faith even if there's no possibility of doing the works, as James kind of talks about there? And then there's like the people who do fall away, for lack of a better word, but then they return. So then you have like layers of questions there. Was their salvation revoked while they roamed, or was God lovingly working in their lives while they were straying in order to bring them back, and they never did lose their salvation? Or the other possibility is that they weren't saved at all and they got saved later, or they did lose it and then they got it back again. So like there's different ways, and I know lots of people who've had that journey. So, and I don't know that it's, first of all, I don't know that it's my place to assess whether that is what happened to, what's going on with them. That's, ultimately that's between them and God. But then there are like passages in like Hebrews 10, which he says in verse 26, "Dear friends, if we deliberately continue sinning after we have received knowledge of the truth, there is no longer any sacrifice that will cover these sins. There's only the terrible expectation of God's judgment and the raging fire that will consume his enemies. For anyone who refused to obey the law of Moses will be put to death without mercy." And then he says, just think how much worse, in verse 29, the punishment will be for those who've trampled on the Son of God. They've treated the blood of the covenant which made us holy as if it were common and unholy, and have insulted and disdained the Holy Spirit who brings God mercy to us. And it goes on and on. Like, you can read through that whole passage, and it's startling, honestly. And then he says in verse 35, "So do not throw away this confident trust in the Lord. Remember the great reward it brings you. Patient endurance is what you need now, so that you will continue to do God's will. Then you will receive all that he has promised you." And then at the very end, he says, I guess I'll read 37 and 8 too. But he says, "In just a little while, the coming one will come and not delay, and my righteous ones will live by faith, but I will take no pleasure in anyone who turns away. But we are not like those who turn away from God to their own destruction. We are the faithful ones whose souls will be saved." Hebrews is a call to endurance, and like that whole passage there. I mean, it does seem to indicate that someone can willingly reject the grace that they at one time did receive. I mean, I don't know how to reconcile all of that, honestly.
Right.
I think you could make the case there, and I know I was schooled in the theology of eternal security, where you can't lose your salvation, and so they would say, like Paul is saying to them, but you're not those people. So it's the parable of the seeds, where some show some indication of new life and growth, but then are choked out by weeds that Jesus talked about, that the gospel never really took root in their lives. I think that's what most people who would hold to that say. But I also know that there's the verse in 2 Corinthians 13:5, and I once heard a message years and years ago, early in my Christian journey, that was just on this one verse, and it was, I mean, here I am, however many years later,
Still sitting with you.
I still think about this message that I heard, and the verse says, "Examine yourselves to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith." And so this idea of, like, it is good to examine ourselves. It is good to reflect on our fruitfulness. It is good not to be paranoid and scared all the time that we're about to lose our salvation, but it is good to regularly assess my walk with the Lord. And is it genuine? Is it real? Are there weeds creeping in that need to be pulled? All these kinds of things. I think it's a healthy thing to. I mean, even some of the Psalms that talk about examine me and see if there's any wicked way in me. Like this regular pausing and reflecting and assessing ought to be part of the regular rhythm of the follower of Jesus. But I don't know that it's super helpful to get all caught up in the, am I losing it? Am I gaining it? At the foundational level of that, my whole thing is like, you don't earn salvation, so how could you do something to lose it?
Yeah. I think it's, the Ephesians 2, that's such a good passage to kind of, I think, go back to also. Ephesians 2:8 says, God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done. So none of us can boast about it. Yep. And I think that is like, even when we talk about the good works, even in these passages that Sarah Beth brings up, is being mindful of the fact that this is rooted in relationship.
Yeah.
So even the good works that are happening are because of the relationship that we're building with Jesus. So if our faith is real, to your point of like examining where we're at with the Lord and in our walk with the Lord, it's like we're examining if we are in relationship with him. Right. And if we're in relationship with him, then these works are evidences of that relationship. Like that's going to be an outpouring of, that's going to come naturally to us. Just like it does if you and I are in relationship as friends. If we're getting together, we're having dinner, you know, our families are like close. We're doing these things. We're building relational collateral. And then, that's the kind of stuff that happens in relationships. So the good works aren't just like these check marks to
They're not
tick off as performance evaluations. Right. These are things that are like the fruit of what's happening in our life because Jesus is really changing who we are. So I think that's also where that starts to get a little muddied for people. And when we have that clarity, the good works are different than what is like a checkoff list. Yep. So I hope that provides some clarity, Sarah Beth. But it's great to wrestle with these kinds of questions. And even in that, you are developing your faith muscle and getting closer to Jesus as you dig into his word. So this week, We wrapped up part 3 of our open invitation series with a message called Enjoyable Invitation. So we're going to dig a little deeper into why joy matters so much in our faith and how it impacts the way we invite others. Our big idea was we invite people to things we're enjoying and not enduring, which I thought was so fitting for us, especially because we talk a lot about what we're enjoying, and we invite people to go to restaurants around here all the time, all that good stuff. So you started off by saying most of us are here because someone invited us. And why do you think invitations are so powerful?
Well, I think ultimately, I think it's because there's so much more potential in an invite than like first glance. Like the story of Rhonda yesterday. Like a simple invitation turned into not just a family coming to church, but it turned into someone having a 2-decade-long ministry with our next gen that changed the trajectory of hundreds of families from one invitation. So like, I think,
and like a casual invitation.
Right. So I think I think they're powerful because they can have a compounding effect. And the first person who invited me to teach in a youth group in Pufftown, North Carolina, had no idea that one invitation what it would turn into. And I think that's the thing. Like you just don't know what a simple invitation can really do. And like for Nathaniel, who that was the first century invite that we looked at, his entire life was completely transformed, as was the life of many, many other people, because church tradition says that he, went on as a missionary and traveled to the, furthest parts of the world, all from one invitation from Philip.
Right. I loved you asking people to stand up if they had been invited to Believers.
Yeah, I would say solid half-ish.
Yeah, what did you think when you saw that?
I almost thought it would be more, but it was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so cool. And I thought, too, Nate and I were talking about this last night, like just the how that visually, and even just the, like you were saying with Rhonda, like that reminder, actually, I think we were talking with the kids, like just those stories and seeing that visually play out is such a, because you just think about invitations and you're kind of like, I guess it's important that we invite and, but when you actually start to see those things like playing out like that is just like, these things really do
then there's
have an effect, a lasting
effect. And then there's the other side of it. Many people who didn't stand received a passive invite, because I talked about passive and active invites yesterday. Passive invites being Facebook ads and posters and invite cards and all those things that are out there. Many people who didn't stand were invited through those things. Yeah. So they actually still were invited. Yeah. Like just not a personal invitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to invite.
So you also said some invitations are better than others. So what makes an invitation enjoyable instead of awkward?
I think authenticity, genuineness, enthusiasm. It really does come down to, like, if it's something that you don't have to, we typically don't have to work really hard to invite someone to something that you don't even you probably don't even think about it. Yeah. If you're really enjoying something, you are inviting people to participate in it. It's a book, it's a show, it's a restaurant, it's a whatever it is. If you're enjoying it, it is kind of second nature to invite other people to enjoy it with you, because you want them to have the same experience that you've had. So I think
that's what was funny about even us putting like the stuff together with Rhonda at the closing. We were like trying to think back, and part of it, yes, is because of how many years it's been, but part of it was just like we were trying to figure out like how did that come up and what was really said, and it was like we couldn't really remember, and in part because I'm sure at the time it was just like it was just Believers has always just been so much from the time the Carls landed here. Yeah. it's just been so much a part of our lives that it was like, yeah, we just talk about it.
Right.
So if we were in that conversation, we were probably like, are you going to church anywhere yet?
Yeah.
It's just not a,
and you weren't
wasn't
on
a second thought.
You weren't on staff yet.
No, we weren't on staff yet.
Yeah. Worth noting.
Yes. I was not on staff. I was not paid.
Yeah, she was not paid to invite. She just did it because she was excited about her church.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you made a strong statement. You said, we invite people to things we're enjoying, not enduring. That was our big idea. Mm-hmm. How do we know if we're enjoying our faith or just enduring it?
Well, one of the ways is the invite. Like, if you're not enjoying it, you're not inviting anyone. And if you are inviting someone, it's probably not a very inviting invitation. So, I mean, that's part of how you know. So, are you talking about it? Are you growing? Sarah Beth, in her question, she's had several things recently where a verse in a reading plan or whatever, and their B group studying or whatever, puts on a rabbit trail of trying to dig in and find more. Well, that's a sign. Like, if you're curious and you're digging deeper, that's a sign that you're enjoying your faith, because there's a hunger there. There's an appetite for the things of God. Is our heart reflecting Jesus, or does it feel like is reading the Bible drudgery to you? Is going to a B group like, oh, roll your eyes and I can't believe it's Wednesday night and I got to go do this thing? Those are sure signs that you're not enjoying. So I think it kind of comes down to that.
Yeah, I would agree. What are some warning signs that faith has become a box to check instead of a source of joy?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. I think, our reading plan literally can be a box to tick, because there's a box that ticks when you're done.
Right.
But if you're doing it for the box ticking instead of, what does God have for me today? That's a sign that you're just kind of going through the motions.
Even with serving, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're just like, oh, I got to be here. I got to like put in planning center that I'm going to be there available for these dates, whatever. And you've lost sight of the mission of like being able to help people.
Right.
Like connect with Jesus today. Like the people that are going to walk into this space are going to be able to hear who Jesus is. Like,
if you don't have a moment of excitement from your serving, or you've sat through months of services without even considering what your next step is. I mean, that's a sure sign that you're just ticking boxes, because you checked off that you went to church, but you're not applying it. You're not taking a step. It's not transforming you. It's not impacting you. So I think that's it.
Jamey, have you gone through a season where faith felt like endurance versus like joy? And how did you come out of that? Because I mean, all of us are going to feel those times. So how do you get, if that's a place where some listeners are right now, how do we get back to rediscovering joy in our faith journeys instead of just like trudging along?
Yeah, I think it's not what I wrote down, but I think part of it is kind of what I was talking about yesterday when I said, if your current routines aren't producing joy in your life, then you need some new routines. I think the same is true in your spiritual development. Like if you're in a rut with your current approach to your walk with Jesus, then shake up your approach, because maybe the approach that you have isn't working. So it could be maybe you're an audio learner instead of instead of reading scripture, maybe it's listening to scripture. Instead of trying to read a passage and then figure out how to apply it to your life, maybe it's watching a devotional kind of thing. Maybe for you, like sitting in a room or the prayer closet seems like torture to you, then get out and walk your neighborhood and use that time to pray. If your routines are are stale, then change your routines. There's so many ways that you can approach your walk with Jesus. The book by John Ortberg that I just love so much, I don't even know how many times I've read it, The Life You've Always Wanted. It's like 10 or 12, I can't remember exactly, different spiritual disciplines. And many of them are things that we've never tried. So like trying something new and seeing, like, even the practice of celebration, that's actually one of the disciplines that he talks about in that book. For many of us, we've never done that, so having your celebration being rooted in who Jesus is, and having that be the reason that you are celebrating, like maybe that just breathes some fresh air into what it is that you're doing. So yeah, I think we all go through dry spells. Of course we do. Some of it is just like keep doing the things that you should do. Like, yeah, you need to be connected to community. Yes, you need to, serving others is critical to growing in your faith. And even if you don't feel like doing it, keep doing it. And like there are certain disciplines that, yeah, you discipline yourself to do those things and you show up in those spaces because that's what you should do. But if you tinker on the edges with some other things, it may breathe some new life into what you're doing and what you're experiencing.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, speaking of some of those things, you walked us through some practical steps to increase our joy.
Yeah.
And the first one you said was to just remain in Jesus. And I know you don't like the name of this one.
Yeah, it's not, it is what Jesus said.
Yeah.
Remain in me. That's what he said.
Right.
So like, I'm not saying it's not good.
You don't like how churchy
but it does sound like if your answer for how do you get more joy is
Did you feel like you were leading with a Jesus juke?
I really did.
I know.
Yeah, you need more joy in your life.
Pause.
Hang out with Jesus more.
Jesus.
So, yeah, I know. Like, if you're struggling with joy, that's not necessarily what you want to hear.
You want to hear, yeah. But yet, it's the best answer.
Yeah. Jesus did say, abiding in me. And then he talks about what does abiding in him look like? It looks like obeying his commands. And if you do that, he said, my joy will become your joy and it will overflow. So, if Jesus says this is the ticket to joy, then I would be remiss in not bringing it up.
I loved how if people are newer and don't know you really well, they got a really good picture of how rule following adverse you are from this, because you're like, I know it doesn't feel great to be told what to do, but
yeah,
this is just what we have to do, okay?
Yeah. So, if someone told me that, I would do the opposite. Right. I get it.
I know. Yeah. I know. Yeah. And then you just talked about this idea of changing up our routines and how that can help us increase joy. And so you challenged us with a big one.
I did.
And this,
there was on the heels second service especially, there was a gasp.
Yeah, on the heels of remaining in Jesus. So you just got through this whole thing.
Stop sinning is basically what I said in the Remain in Jesus one. Stop sinning.
Then you're like, okay, and then the second thing is this. We're going to change up our routines, and this is how we're going to do it. You guys, we're going to do it like this. We're going to unplug from screens for a whole week.
Stop screening.
So everyone, second service, you're right. Some people
First
were
service,
very
not
close
as much,
to having a heart attack.
Yeah. I did kind of set them up on purpose.
You did, yeah. So why do you think this is such a big deal for our joy? And how can someone realistically do that without feeling like they're missing out?
Yeah. So that question, the missing out thing.
Yeah.
Where is that?
I wish Joey was in here because he has FOMO.
He has FOMO. Yeah. So, I think part of the answer is you have to remind yourself what you are missing out on by being on the screens.
Right.
That's the thing.
That's good.
So, this pause, like a 1 week pause, like maybe you're missing out on the person who's sitting in the living room with you.
Yeah.
So there was in the book, The Life You've Always Wanted, I did reread the chapter on celebration for putting this message together, and they said that it was like Gallup or one of those survey companies did a survey of the words most frequently used in the TV room of someone's house, and it was like move and be quiet or something like that. So like that's the extent of the conversation that we're having, most of us, because we're so locked on our screens. Or I would say another one that gets used a lot in our house, and I'm guilty as anybody, is what did you say? Because I'm not engaged with what's being said because I'm disengaged by being engaged in something else. So yeah, the very thing that you might be missing out on are the relationships that matter to you the most. And so you're in tune and you're, oh, did you hear about so-and-so who you haven't seen in 5 years and what they're doing and what is happening with them? Meanwhile, you don't even know what's happening with the person who's sitting across from you at the dinner table because you haven't had a meaningful conversation with them in days or weeks because you've been so engaged with screen time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. Like, you just have to remind yourself, like, what are the relationships that are most important to me? And not having screen time is going to make those relationships better.
Yeah. Sky Jitani, he's of the Holy Post podcast, and he's an author. We've done a series based on one of his books not too long ago, but he's been doing a series in his devotional lately of different like historical, Christian historical figures. But he did one on Martin Luther recently, and it was around this idea.
Reformer Luther.
Yes. And so he says that, I'm just going to read a little portion of it. It says, "What do smartphones have to do with the 16th century Protestant reformer Martin Luther? Luther struggled all of his life with anxiety. In fact, his affliction may have been the seed from which the entire Reformation grew. As a young man, Luther was distraught over the vision of an angry God whose standard of righteousness he could not reach. He struggled with calls to love and worship a God he actually hated and eventually rejected, the image of God he received from the church. Instead, he turned to the Bible, and there he discovered a different picture of a loving God full of grace. Luther's anxiety did not end after embracing the New Testament teachings of grace through faith, a clue that his issue was more than theological. Rooted in his own experience, he wrote pastoral advice for others with the affliction that is still applicable today. Luther warned against isolation, where we imagine that other people are very happy and it distresses us that things go well with them and evil with us. Isn't that exactly what social media makes us assume today?
Yeah.
He also prescribed prayer and meditation upon Jesus' resurrection, a reminder that God brings life out of death rather than avoiding the problem. Do not sit by yourself or lie on a couch. Get a grip on yourself, you lazy bum, Luther wrote. You must learn to call upon the Lord, he said. The solution to anxiety isn't the immediate pacification provided by a smartphone, but facing our fears head on with God through prayer.
That's so good.
I just thought that was so timely with this.
Luther called people lazy bums?
Yeah, he called them lazy bums and told them to get off the couch.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
That's great.
Yeah, so great. Then the other thing that you told us to do was to celebrate weekly, which felt like a little breath of fresh air after you were being so hard on everybody.
Stop sinning.
Yeah.
Stop screening.
Right. So celebrate weekly. I loved the little teaching point about holidays and holy days and all of that. So what would modern Sabbath celebration look like for a family or a small group with this idea of celebration built into it?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as, the passage that I read from Nehemiah talked about feasting and eating your favorite foods and drinking your favorite drinks and doing acts of generosity and service to those who don't have that capacity, they don't have the bandwidth to be able to celebrate, well, bless them in ways that they can. So, I think our groups could certainly turn into weekly celebrations. Family times, like I remember, like my grandparents, they were very, very religious, very stern. And like Sundays were like sit around and do nothing days.
But like somber?
Very somber.
Okay.
So like, but what if, I just started thinking like, what if Sabbath wasn't just like unplug, like it almost has a negative term. Like you almost think of Sabbath keeping, like it's why you have to teach on it a lot because people don't want to do it. Because it sounds like drudgery, but what if it's the best thing ever?
Yeah.
And what if you turn Sabbath, this day of unplugging from the rigors of your work, and turn it into like the most joy-filled day that you have, and it causes you to be grateful to God for all the things that He's provided for you? Well, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there is a family movie that came out a couple years ago now, I think. It was called Yes Day. And it was just a day that the kids get to like ask for things, and the parents are like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Yes Day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you, in that same vein, you said you should also, if that's not something that comes
if that sounds hard to you,
you need to find a joy mentor.
You do.
And you called out
I did.
Believer's very own champion of joy.
She is a champion of joy.
Martin Burke.
I did.
We also have a staff joy mentor. It's Debbie.
Yeah, we do.
Debbie Ward is our staff joy mentor. So, we've got a few of them that we can pick out. But they also,
Brittany
you
Cook.
said, Brittany Cook can be
Doctor of Fun.
Yeah, she is the Doctor of Fun.
Yep.
So there's like a few of them that we can, point to. They also can't be everyone's.
They cannot. In fact, Claire, Martin's wife, was saying, like, I don't see Martin enough right now. So I don't want him being the joy mentor of everyone in the church.
Right.
Fair, Claire. That's fair.
Maybe he could do like a YouTube video and tell people how to be.
Martin, that's a great idea. You should start a YouTube channel.
A joy mentor. That would be fun.
That would be so
Everyone
fun.
would watch that. It might be really long. But
or it might get really repetitive.
But everyone.
Do you know Jesus loves you? That's how it would start and end.
Yeah. But it would be fun.
It would be great.
And then finally, the fifth one is remember the resurrection. You said that joy flows from resurrection thinking.
Yeah.
So how do we practically remind ourselves of that when life feels heavy?
It does feel heavy. It is heavy. I'm pretty sure this was a John Ortberg thing that I heard forever ago, but he had this thing where he encouraged you to put it was eternal or temporary on sticky notes and put them on everything.
I love that idea.
Yeah. And so, and what you realize is almost everything you're putting a lot of weight on is temporary. And so like, that's just a very tangible way to like, if you start thinking, you don't have to necessarily use a sticky note, but like, if you just start thinking about everything that's going on in your world that seems so heavy, is it eternal or temporary? And if it's temporary, then it shouldn't carry the weight on you that you're giving it. So I just love that idea of, sticky noting everything, temporary, eternal. And it's just a perspective shift. It's just reminding yourself, like all of those things, like that passage from Revelation, all of those things that weigh us down. And then you realize that God himself is going to push those things to the side. They're not going to have the last word in your life. And even if they take your life, the next breath you take, none of that will be there.
Right.
So don't give it the weight that our world wants to give it. Because, ultimately, it's the hope of the resurrection that is the difference maker for the follower of Jesus. It ought to change our perspective. And if it's not changing how you're reacting and responding to what life is throwing at you, then maybe you're not spending enough time thinking about it. Because Paul was able to sit in prison and say, be full of the joy of the Lord always, I'll say it again, be full of joy.
Yeah.
And he could say that not because he was loving life, but because he knew that prison did not have the last word in his life.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've just started, well, some B groups have just started. Some are kicking off in just a couple of weeks. A number of them use the podcast to kind of help facilitate their conversations. How can someone get involved in a B group? How can they use this to kind of help their conversations? How can they bring joy into their groups?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about all that.
So we have, like, every week in our message notes, we have talked over questions, and then we have the more complete conversation on the podcast. I've been in B groups that's what they've used as their study.
Yeah.
And just do that. So that's a thing you can do. The series that we're starting on October the 5th, we also need to produce and will produce an additional, like, 1-page study guide for each week of that series, which will help you to dig in a little bit more on those particular weeks of that series where we're going to be studying 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. And the amount of people who tell me that they want me to teach on Revelation and end times are going to love this series because it does get touched on quite a bit, actually. So we'll be looking at some of those.
The series is called Get Ready.
Get ready. Get ready for the coming of the Lord is really what that is. Like, let's live in light of the fact that he's coming back. And that lends itself to this last question, like living in light of eternity.
Yeah.
If I understand that this world is not the end, then I need to live preparing myself for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're here for good, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. We'll be on campus at 9 and 10:45 this coming Sunday. And if you can't make it then, you can join us on YouTube at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Thanks for joining us. And if this conversation helped you, we'd love for you to share it out on your social media feeds, give it to a friend, and then invite them to join you this Sunday on campus. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here, friends. Go and be love.